Have you ever paused in the middle of your day and thought, why do I keep telling myself I'm not good enough? That feeling can surface unexpectedly, maybe after a small mistake at work, or when comparing yourself to someone else's seemingly perfect life. In that fleeting moment, the belief that you are somehow fundamentally lacking can grip you with surprising force. Today, I want to explore how that belief sets the stage for shame, burnout, and a host of unhelpful habits, and then show you how to rewrite that script so you can truly step into self-acceptance. Let's start with a story. Picture a dedicated professional, someone who has worked hard to earn the trust of clients or colleagues. On the surface, they appear confident and competent. Yet behind closed doors, they grapple with an ever-growing fatigue that erodes their passion for the work they once loved. They find themselves unable to shake the thought that they're simply not cut out for this anymore. Their inner critic gets louder. If I were really good at my job, I wouldn't feel this overwhelmed. Instead of seeking a healthier balance or asking for help, they sink deeper into shame, believing that their challenges indicate a personal failure. This vicious cycle underscores the power of the not good enough narrative, a story that, if left unchecked, can spiral into despair and isolation. Shame often lies at the heart of the not good enough storyline. It's more than just regret for a specific misstep. It's a pervasive sense that you're fundamentally flawed and unworthy of connection or success. Unlike guilt, which signals you made a mistake, shame insists that you are the mistake. It's insidious because it turns your own sense of self against you. And when we're talking about burnout, whether in personal relationships or professional life, shame can compound the exhaustion. It tells you that needing help is the same as being weak, that stumbling means you lack value, and that your struggles are proof you've failed as a person. Where does that shame come from? We aren't born thinking we're defective. If you've ever watched toddlers stumble when learning to walk, you'll notice they tend to get right back up, undeterred by the failure. Early in life, however, many of us encounter explicit or subtle messages about what we should or shouldn't feel, do, or be. Maybe you were told to be brave and not cry, or that success means never making a mistake. These messages accumulate over time. Cultural norms can also reinforce the idea that certain feelings indicate weakness, or that loving yourself is selfish. Eventually, you internalize these beliefs, and they become part of your default self-talk. By adulthood, a single stumble can resurrect all those hidden scripts of inadequacy, drowning out any memory of your abilities and achievements. Yet shame isn't destiny. While we can't eradicate it entirely, shame is a universal human emotion. We can choose how we respond to it. We can allow it to thrive in secrecy, or we can view it as a signal that something deeper needs our attention. In fact, if we pull back the curtain on shame, it can become a teacher, revealing where we might be holding ourselves to unrealistic standards. That's the first step, turning toward the emotion with curiosity rather than running from it in fear or embarrassment. So how do we do that in practical terms? Let's walk through a 5-step process. The first step is mindfulness, being fully aware of what's happening in the present moment, inside your body and mind. When you feel that pang of, I'm not good enough, pause. Notice the sensations in your body. Are your muscles tensing? Are you breathing more quickly? Does your mind race with self-criticism? Mindfulness is about observing these experiences without immediately judging them or trying to push them away. Think of it like dipping your toe into cold water instead of diving in head first. You acknowledge the temperature, the feel, without forcing yourself to endure more than you can handle all at once. Next, step 2 encourages you to identify what triggers your shame. It might be a situation like seeing a coworker excel while you're struggling, or an emotion, such as anger or sadness, that you believe you shouldn't have. You can even feel shame for feeling shame, an endless loop of self-criticism. Write these triggers down in a journal or note app. This helps you externalize the process, turning a vague swirl of self-doubt into specific, identifiable moments or thoughts. For instance, you might jot down, I feel shame about wanting to reduce my work hours because I fear I'm letting my team down. Naming it is a crucial step toward understanding it, because it shifts your perspective from I am the shame to I'm observing the shame. The third step is to ask, what is this shame telling me? Every emotion carries a message, and shame's message usually revolves around a perceived failure to meet an internal standard. For example, if your standard is, I should never show vulnerability at work, then feeling burnt out suggests you failed to be tough enough. Another person might hold the standard, I must always be the caregiver in my family, so asking for help triggers shame because it violates their sense of responsibility. Identify these internal beliefs because once they're in the open, you can evaluate whether they make sense or are impossibly strict. This leads us to step 4, re-evaluating your shame by challenging the underlying expectations. Ask yourself questions like, is it realistic for me or anyone to never show weakness? Do most successful people actually maintain this standard I'm imposing on myself? Is it truly feasible to care for everyone else without ever receiving care in return? Often, when you put these expectations under the microscope, you realize they're unsustainably high or based on outdated ideas. For instance, the belief if I were a good friend, I'd never cancel plans, might ignore the reality that sometimes you need rest or you have unexpected responsibilities. A more balanced expectation might be, I can be a caring friend and still take time off for my well-being. Let's ground this in a concrete example. Suppose someone you know has spent years believing that a great parent never loses their temper. One day, the stress of juggling work, finances, and family tasks boils over, and they snap at their child. Almost instantly, they feel a wave of shame. I'm a terrible parent. By reviewing that standard, this idea of unwavering patience, they might see it's neither realistic nor widely held by all parents. Instead, a healthier guideline could be, it's normal to get upset sometimes. What matters is apologizing if I cross a line, working to manage my stress, and learning to communicate calmly over time. Challenging and adjusting that standard dampens shame's power, replacing I'm a terrible parent with I'm a learning parent doing my best under real-world pressures. Finally, step 5, practice this revised story. Awareness alone won't change the patterns you've developed over years or even decades. You need to catch yourself in the act of shame and consciously shift your perspective again and again. Suppose you often think, I should never need help. After re-evaluating, you decide a more balanced stance is, everyone needs help sometimes, and it's okay to ask for it when I'm struggling. The next time that pang of shame arises, maybe when you consider talking to a friend or colleague about your challenges, remind yourself of your new guideline. Over time, this repetitive, intentional practice will help establish a healthier mental habit, allowing you to move towards self-acceptance instead of self-condemnation. These 5 steps, mindfulness, identifying your shame triggers, uncovering its message, challenging the rules behind it, and practicing a new standard, are powerful tools for transforming not only how you see yourself, but also how you relate to others. Rather than hiding your feelings, you become more comfortable discussing them. Rather than believing you must handle everything perfectly on your own, you start giving and receiving support more openly. This shift can reduce burnout, strengthen relationships, and ultimately help you find greater fulfillment in your daily life.